Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to a new edition of the Daily Debate. In tonight's show, we're going to be looking at Ramadan in Egypt. Now, we are in our first week of the holy month of Ramadan, and we're going to be looking at the possible festivities and the touristic destinations taking place during the holy month here in Egypt. But before we start talking about that, let's check out a couple of the stories making the news today. And we'll start off with President Abdel al-Sisi, who held talks with Prime Minister Mustafa Madbouli and Minister of Housing, Utilities and Urban Communities Asim al-Gazzar on Tuesday. Presidential spokesperson Bassam Baradi said the meeting tackled the executive position of the Ministry of Housing's national projects. During the meeting, President al-Sisi directed to continue working on various projects and to be completed according to the scheduled timetables, while developing marketing programs and financing packages for housing units with the aim of making more of them available to all segments of units in society. The meeting also reviewed projects within the new administrative capital, especially the construction of roads and main entrances of the capital and the financial and business district. The President also followed up on the development of the historic Cairo area, which aims to restore the civilized face of Cairo, including the development process in Magra al-Ayun Wall, as well as the development of Amr ibn al-As Mosque. And President Abdel al-Sisi held a phone call and a conversation with the Prime Minister of Hungary, Viktor Orban. Now, presidential spokesman Bassam Baradi said President al-Sisi congratulated the Hungarian Prime Minister on the occasion of the ruling coalition victory in the legislative elections in Hungary. President al-Sisi stressed that the victory reflects the confidence of the Hungarian voters in the vision and ability of Orban to continue the course of the country during the next stage. For his part, the Hungarian premier expressed his appreciation to President al-Sisi, stressing his keenness to enhance communication with the head of state and consultations and coordination on various files of common interest. These were a couple of the stories making the news today, but now turning our attention to tonight's topic, Ramadan in Egypt, a month of endless festivities. Let's check out this report and we'll be right back.
As Egyptians celebrate the holy month of Ramadan, a month that revolves around the purification of the mind, body and soul, strands of decorative lights twinkle like stars in the streets and the skyline. Exquisite handcrafted lanterns sway over every doorway. Rainbow-colored canvases drape over endless rows of tables and chairs throughout the city. A festive atmosphere pulses through every street and alleyway. Abstinence from food and drink from sunrise to sunset, giving back to society, and enlightened self-reflection are the main pillars of this holy month, and it is undoubtedly one of the best times to visit Egypt. It's mostly business as usual during the day, and you'll be able to see all of Egypt's attractions and landmarks. As the sun sets, people begin heading towards the locale where they plan to feast. No food during the day means copious delight in the evening. A barrage of palate-pleasing entrees and hefty main courses, as well as scrumptious desserts, make their debut across the country as restaurants compete through new and exciting culinary concoctions. Also, there's lots of entertainment across the landscape. Every night offers a wide array of shows and activities. Listening to young Egyptian bands play music or visiting the gorgeous palaces and hosting international composers or soaking up any number of live performances at the Cairo Opera House are all options. You can also mingle with contemporary Cairo at Egypt's famous Ramadan Suhoor tents or khayam, or you can enjoy blissfulness of a pre-dawn felucca ride or a stroll in the early hours of the morning downtown Cairo. The highlight of the Islamic year, Ramadan, can be a great time to explore Egypt.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, and we're joined here tonight in the studio by Dr. Yahya Abdel, the Tourism Council. Dr. Abdel, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Dr. Abdel, now it's a very special time of the year, the holy month of Ramadan in Egypt especially. Now, before we start delving into the specifics of the festivities and the prospects that tourists can enjoy here in Egypt, can you shed more light on the general atmosphere and the traditions and the festivities taking place in Egypt during Ramadan?
Well, actually, there is like a short historical background, you know, like the advent of Amr ibn al-As in 640, you know, like, and then the Caliphs, you know, like the Caliphs who succeeded him, you know, like Ibn Tulun, Ikhshid. So they were looking after, you know, like they were not Egyptians. So, and Islam, you know, like was like newly introduced in Egypt. So they had to satisfy, you know, like, and the masses and the subjects of that time. So Ramadan was a very good, you know, like season, you know, like to show their gratitude, you know, like and generosity. So they were serving, you know, like free banquets and giving away, you know, like food supplies like corn, wheat, sugar, fat for the masses. And, you know, like mosques, you know, like were open for prayers, you know, like late prayers. And then there were candles, you know, like, so the whole, you know, like really nights of Ramadan was just like daylight because they kept, you know, like celebrating and like exchanging, you know, like gifts, and there was tolerance time. So people, you know, like were very satisfied, you know, like and excited when it is about time for Ramadan.
Yes. Well, you've mentioned the gatherings and the family gatherings and the food banquets for the two main meals, the breakfast and the suhoor meal, which is right before dawn prayer. Now, we are living in a time where there's a lot of international crises taking place, and everyone's talking about the availability of food and the basic commodities. However, in Egypt, especially during Ramadan, we are witnessing the availability of all these basic needs. How do you highlight the food strategy that the government has been implementing to make sure everybody, with all segments of society, with all the economic and social brackets, are satisfied with the availability of the commodities?
Well, actually, we have to thank, you know, like President Sisi, because he was so keen, you know, like he was addressing the government that food supplies should be available, and really we are so lucky because we have reserve of wheat, you know, like for like 8 months from now. So we are so secure. Major, you know, like stables, you know, like food is available, and the Ministry of Provision, you know, like they launched with Ahlan Ramadan, you know, like a network of merchandise and markets, you know, like at reduced rates of 30% of the market value for the whole masses. So everybody was capable of getting the food supplies and stables, you know, like he needs. And then we have Yahya Karima as well. And I was talking to Mr. Mu'azz Shaw, the president of the Food Bank. They donated food supplies for 10 million families. So you can imagine the magnitude, you know, like, so I'm watching TVs, you know, like worldwide, they talk about shortage in fuel, food supplies. I mean, not Egypt, you know, like in Europe because of the crisis we have.
Yes.
But really, you know, like here, you know, like the reviews, you know, like coming out, the BBC TV sank, they were very satisfactory that up to now, you know, like, and then luckily, you know, like the open buffet, the Mawad Rahman is back on track. And this is very generous and very, you know, like, it's a good sign of hospitality for the Egyptian people, because many tourists, you know, like when they finish the tours and they start doing itineraries, you know, like in Old Cairo, Khan Khalil, Al-Azhar, Al-Mu'azzez, so they found these free meals, so they sit down and they're having free dinner, so it's so enjoyable, and people, you know, like entertain them and they go home back and tell their friends. So Ramadan as well really is a very good season for international visitors to come to Egypt.
Yes. Well, we always speak about Egypt as being a perfect touristic destinations all year round because of the perfect weather, all the different sort of touristic services being provided, be it winter tourism, summer tourism, cultural tourism, religious tourism, health tourism, all of these things. Now, we are on the verge, I mean, this week temperatures are getting warmer and we are entering the summer season, but the holy month of Ramadan is preceding it right away. It's a spring now. So the main destinations for tourists during the holy month of Ramadan, you've mentioned Khan Khalili, you've mentioned Al Hussein, there's also obviously all the museums, but before that as well, in Muaz Boulevard. So can you shed more light on the main touristic destinations specifically associated to Ramadan?
Well, actually, like downtown, like Old Cairo, like Fustat, Amr al-As, all this region, like Sultan al-Ghuri, Azhar, Hussein, Khan Khalili, and the Muaz Street. So this is the hub, like for the culture, for the history, for Old Cairo that was, like founded in 969, like Bagawar Suqilli. It's over like 1,200 years old now. I mean, 12 centuries ago it was founded. So really, like these are the quarters that visitors and Egyptians and Arabs like enjoy to go to the cafe, like, and have tea, like mint tea, and have pastries and enjoy. And some people come and play music. For example, like in Old Cairo at Al-Ghuri, so Sultan Al-Ghuri, like we have songs, we have chants, we have festivals, we have folklore troops coming from Nubia, from Aswan, from Alexandria, from Port Said. We have the Mawlawi, like dance groups and chanting groups. We have at Tanura, this is like been like traditional for a long time now. We have the Dervish. So all these troops, like they are performing for 30 days, even at the Opera House. And even there's like classic, like music like Manal Muhyiddin, she has her ensemble and they perform, like in this area. And then apart from Sultan Al-Ghuri, you have Beit Sihemi, like Beit Sihemi, we have, like Qasr Bashtak, we have, like Amir Taz, like Palace. So all these quarters, like they have their own agenda, and then people can be spending like 5-6 hours hopping from one location to another and enjoying, for example, in Talat Harb Center in Sayyida Nafisa quarters, they are playing Lila Kibira by Salah Jain and Said Mikawi. So it's really a mood of festivals and celebration and tolerance and enjoying the spiritual, like ambiance of Ramadan.
Well, how do you explain that Egypt enjoys this sort of atmosphere and all these sort of festivities, standing out among even other Arab and Muslim countries? Why does Egypt enjoy such a unique experience with all these different sorts of culture and arts? How do you explain this?
Well, actually, just like one thing I like to add, because you mentioned, like the position of Egypt, like in entertainment and providing this colorful image you like during a fasting month. Just 3 days ago, the Los Angeles Times, like they had a feature story about that 2 billion Muslims will be observing the rituals of Ramadan. And they highlighted that Cairo and Egypt is the Hollywood of Middle East and North Africa, because we produce like movies, series, like media, like radio, TV, that's valued at 3 billion pounds, like, and we already, like being enjoying like these episodes on the whole world as well. So this is one of the major attractions of Egypt, dedicated to 1 month. And then historically, like as I mentioned, some of the caliphs, when the Fatimid dynasty, like landed in 969, they have their own sector, and to make it popular, like they mix it, like with social functions, like with food, entertainment, festivals, singing, dancing, like so that really had been our heritage, like for over 12 centuries now. This has been developed. So we are the only people that enjoying, like this culture of celebrating Ramadan and making very colorful, festive, and in a celebrating mood. This is the historical reasons for the positioning of Egypt as, you know, like the hub for an enjoyable month of Ramadan.
Yes. Well, you've alluded to the TV series and the drama shows and everything, and it has become, for decades, one of the main sort of highlights of Ramadan.
Exactly.
Everybody's tuned in watching endless Ramadan series
Yes.
all over the TV stations, and even now people are watching the commercials and the advertisements and all of these things. It is an industry on its own during
Exactly,
this prime time month on TV. Now, does that play a role in really attracting and highlighting the importance of the festivities of such a month, not just for Egyptians, but even around the world, because they are transmitted all over the world, at least the Arab world as well?
Definitely, yes. You know, like we remember maybe like 20 years ago when they were releasing Rafat al-Hajjan, you know, like the streets, you know, like were empty, you know, like everybody was at home watching the episodes, and by the time there was only 2 or 3 episodes per month, you know, like Leila Leila and like 2 other shows, and that's it. Now we have like around 40 episodes, you know, like only, you know, like developed in Egypt. I mean, let us talk about the GCC countries and the productions. So maybe you have 100 episodes per day that you select a few to watch and enjoy. So really it is very colorful and became like, you know, like one of the landmarks of the month, the media development and the movie stars and the documentaries. And the Ministry of Tourism, they were so smart that really they developed a program about, you know, like adventure tourism in Egypt. I was watching every day. It's 15 minutes, and they show skydiving, you know, like around the Giza Plateau and the Saqqara Necropolis. It's very entertaining because that attracts, you know, like certain segment of young men and women who like to enjoy, you know, like adventures like diving, like sand surfing. So this is very smart, you know, like because there is a captive audience, you know, like you have like about 70 million people having dinner and they having their, you know, like TV sets, you know, like on for long times. So this is really one aspect, but again, we are taking advantage of this at the Cairo University, the College of Mass Comm. There's like 200 students who like reviewing, you know, like drama, and to like really like to assess, you know, like is it, you know, like beneficial or detrimental, you know, because drama plays, you know, like a major factor in the memory, because people like tend when they see something they believe it. You know, like we know it's fiction, but for them it's non-fiction.
Yes.
So we would like to do this and see if some of these programs, you know, like can be tuned, you know, like for example, you know, like Turkey became a tourist destination because of the drama they were producing, and everybody, you know, like looked at the palaces and they liked it and loved it, and they start traveling and buying and shopping and even owning houses over there. So this is only one segment of media that turned it, you know, like major population and making it a competitive tourist destination.
Yes. Well, the Ministry of Tourism now realizing how much of an opportunity Ramadan is to attract foreign tourists here in Egypt. Now, how much of the tourism calendar, how much does the holy month of Ramadan really have its share of the tourism calendar? Does it equate for a lot of foreign tourists coming from the West or Europe, or is it mainly targeting maybe more of the GCC and Arab countries or maybe North Africa? What sort of markets is the Ministry of Tourism trying to penetrate here?
Well, actually it is both. You know, like I worked for 8 years between New York and Los Angeles, and many, you know, like visitors, they come to me and says, oh, we know that everything is shut down in Egypt during Ramadan. We're not going to travel. Told them, no, it's the other way around, because you have less traffic, less contamination, less noise, so it's more accessible. So you can do like about 5-6 things in a day, but in regular times, you know, this is going to be cut to the half. So they started, you know, like really planning and scheduling the tours to be in Ramadan, because, you know, like of accessibility and, you know, like the atmosphere, and we enjoy. The same thing for the Arab visitors. Actually, they stick to the family formalities for the first 2 weeks. But at the third week, like arrived, they start breaking out and, like coming, like to Egypt because they like to spend, like 1 week or 10 days and spend the Eid and enjoy and do shopping and then go back because, I mean, like very large number of them, they had their education, they have families, intermarriage and interrelated. So Egypt has its own charm. And when I worked on Nile cruises, I used to have visitors. They would like come for like 10, 15 like times, like every year to spend Christmas, like over like Luxor and so on and all this. So I mean, like Cairo and Egypt has its like gravitation, like attracts people, and they cannot escape. François Mitterrand used to spend every Christmas for like 25 years at the like the hotels in Luxor and Aswan. So I mean, you cannot escape the charm of Egypt, like, and its impact on the minds and souls of visitors from the GCC or from Europe as
well. Well, it will coincide this year that Ramadan will also witness the Easter festivities and celebrations. Does it change the strategy of the Ministry of Tourism? Does the ministry or the travel agencies see such a simultaneous celebration and they just hit the jackpot?
Exactly, like just today, like Mr. Hamdi Zaki, director of our tourist office in Madrid, he left back to Madrid and he came in like early 3 weeks ago and he had like hundreds of Spanish visitors, like coming to Egypt, and they met Zahi Hawass at the footsteps of the Sphinx. So like it's so enjoyable, and now we're Russian travel is back, like on the Red Sea resorts of Marsa Alam, Hagara and Sharm el-Sheikh. So Egypt has its own captive market, and Dr. Anani, like was in Europe, in London, Switzerland and Germany last week. So because of the redundancy, like of the political situation, but thank God, Egypt maintaining, like its inflows. Look at the hotels, like after sunset, you'll find all the hotels overlooking the Nile. They are lit, the rooms, and some of them just like a full house.
Yes.
So really we are lucky because of, like the hard work of the ministry, its strategies and its promotions that they're doing. And at the same time, we are blessed, like with our culture and, like the image and personality of Egyptian people that's very hospitable and supportive.
Yes. Well, ladies and gentlemen, Egypt is blessed by an all-year-round tourism industry, and the month of Ramadan in Egypt has its own charm, oriental charm that is very attractive to tourists from around the world. Let's check out this report and we'll be right back.
Ramadan is the highlight of the Islamic calendar, a month-long festival characterized by both great restraint and great indulgence. If you're lucky enough to travel to Egypt during Ramadan, you're likely to see Egyptians at their most generous. The customary greeting to be recited wherever possible is Ramadan Kareem, or have a generous Ramadan. Muslims should not avoid work or school during the holy month of Ramadan in Egypt, although some businesses reduce working hours. This means tourists can enjoy most of the usual services available throughout the rest of the year. If you're in Cairo, you'll have the opportunity to witness the capital at its more peaceful. As the sun sets and minarets start calling across the city, inhabitants vacate to pray and eat with their families. Cairo is rapidly transformed into an eerie ghost town for an hour or two, and visitors are treated to a rarity, a moment of peace and quiet in Africa's largest city. Some historic sites may close earlier than usual, so tourists should check timetables in advance. Also, although many restaurants and tourist areas will remain open, those away from these resorts might not open till later in the evening. The streets and homes decorated with fawanis or Ramadan lanterns are a sight to see. Tasting a traditional iftar dinner at a local restaurant and experiencing the festivity is also very pleasant. People visit El Mu'ayz Street in the evening, a historic street that takes on a special charm during the quiet nights of Ramadan.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, continuing our discussion with Dr. Abdel. Now, so if we are looking at the tourism sector and the holy month of Ramadan, we can't help but also allude to some of the cultural tourism that could be done here in Egypt. And we have now an abundance of museums, the Fustat Museum, the Museum of Civilization. We're having many new museums established all around the country in different governorates. Also, we are anticipating the opening of the Grand Egyptian Museum later this year. Now, having this sort of availability and this type of tourism in Egypt, and it seems to be an evergreen sort of progressive tourism, especially with the discovery of many new monuments, artifacts, the arrival of some of the artifacts such as the basmatic Osier coffin arriving to Egypt from Dubai. Can you please highlight some of the prospects or potential of such a type of tourism here in Egypt?
Well, actually, we are lucky because on April 3rd, this is the anniversary of the Fustat Museum for Civilization. We remember, like the Royal Parade of the mummies, like 22 mummies, and how was that captivating and sensational worldwide. And that generated, like really international inflows of visitors, like inbound travel coming to Egypt because of the beautiful and sophisticated parade. The museum really under the management, of Dr. Ahmad Ghanem, really he's a genius because there was nearly 1 million visitors within 12 months, and they conducted a series, of activities, theaters and dinners, art shows. Actually, every 6 weeks, I go to visit this beautiful museum. It's so creative, and sophisticated, the design. It's not a big one, that contains thousands, a very limited edition, but it is perfectly displayed. The good thing is they are going to add, from time to time, some, antiquities and more, elements to be displayed. For example, there's going to be a new museum for textile. And this is going to be in the vicinity, and the surrounding, of Fustat Museum. And again, the ministry, they have, the Taba Mosque that was going to be inundated, because of the groundwater. This has been salvaged and, moved, and preserved, and restored by, the professional team of the ministry, of tourism, and housing as well. So this is unique, to salvage, antiquities that's 600 years old, and to develop a museum for textile, and we have textiles since Pharaonic times. Greek-Roman, Arab, Muslim, Coptic, It's very, prestigious and exotic as well. So we're having the new museum for textile, and we, restore the Taba, mausoleum. It's going to be open, for the public. And again, this year, remember, on November 4th, we are celebrating the King Tut centennial.
Yes.
100 years since Howard Carter came across, accidentally, the tomb, in the Valley of the Kings.
Yes.
So, for example, students, and I look forward that students in universities and colleges of tourism, archaeology, antiquities, and mass comm in Egypt, we have about 50 of these colleges that they have, to develop. We need to develop, a promotional plan. We have only 7 months to go. So the whole nation, the 100 million Egyptians, they have to be working this. And actually, I have a group of 200. I broke them into groups to work on merchandise, on costume, on promotion, on digital, and to do a script about Akhenaten and Nefertiti and King Tut, for about 60 minutes in Arabic. And then I look forward that foreign universities, like in Sierra Leone, in Denmark, and Spain, that will join at the Cairo University, and we'll do the Arabic, episode, at the theater, Cairo University, and then we do the rest of the English ones at the theater, and the galleries, at the Opera House. So this is, it takes 100 years. I mean, next time, inshallah, me and you will be celebrating 2122. So really, we are so placid, you know, like about, you know, like this is like once in a lifetime. We don't want like London and Paris and the US is celebrating King Tut.
Yes.
And, you know, like we are the ancestors of the pharaohs. So really, I would like Dr. Anani will take this into account in his, you know, like, this is unique opportunity, you know, like how long is it going to come to you, like to celebrate something over 100 years?
Yes.
You know, like the Kader Museum built like 120 years ago. So, I mean, like, we are short of time, it's only 7 months, but the whole nation have to be ready to, as they do like worldwide, you know, like Mozart, Bach, you know, like Louvre, Gioconda, you know, like Mona Lisa, Shakespeare. Every country, you know, like celebrates its icons, and it's excellent for the soft power of the country, for promotion, for the image, for it will support its economic, it will upgrade, you know, like the human resources of the country, you know, like they will discipline, techniques, organization, like the World Youth Forum we do every year in Sharm el-Sheikh. It's a great event. So really, I would like, you know, like really to promote more like after I leave this program, this really episode that we have to stand for King Tut, because I remember once it was in London displayed, and I had a friend, a tour guide, Mr. Ashraf Musa. He sent me pictures at the airport, like making cups and carrying, you know, like the image of King Tut in all the coffee shops in London. So I told him, bring me, please, some of these cups to show it. We need to do merchandise. You know, like at Disneyland, for example, they get 30% of this revenue from merchandise, from the T-shirts, from the cups, from the mugs, from the giveaways. So what did we develop up yet? Nothing. I mean, if we cannot do, I mean, the ministry now have its own like artisan, you know, like I saw them at the Cairo Museum producing, you know, like a souvenir and, you know, artifacts that you can sell to the tourists. We have to develop a whole line, because the king has over 5,000, you know, like artifacts is going to be displayed at the Grand Egyptian Museum. Remember, you know, like 4,000 years ago, this is the first man in history, he was having gloves. Remember, he was living in this like warm weather, but it is so sensitive, you know, like he had like this, you know, like gold, you know, like shields, you know, like for his toes and his fingers. So, I mean, he has folding chairs. He had like convertible like beds, you know, like portable. So this is, we do it now, but we had all this 4,000 years ago. So we need to do replicas of this and promote the image, the story, Akhenaten, Nefertiti. It's a saga that we have really to make advantage.
Yes. Well, it seems that this year many things fall into place. I mean, you've mentioned the discovery of King Tut's tomb, 100 years, a centennial. Also, 200 years ago, the deciphering of the Egyptian hieroglyphics. Yes, and also, as well, the inauguration will be taking place of the Grand Egyptian Museum, which will witness all the major belongings of King Tut under one roof.
Exactly.
So we have all of these things slated for this year, 2022. What sort of strategy can the Ministry of Tourism sort of plan and implement that would be a touristic saga that would be taking all over the world?
Well, you know, the ministry sometimes, you know, looks like they like to keep like good things for last. So really, because I have many travel writers I know throughout my career, professional life, they call me, they say they would like to come to the Grand Egyptian Museum and have a peek, because they have digital magazines worldwide. Some of them, they have like about 7 million viewers in English and like about 2 million in Scandinavian. You know, like, but you know, like you call the authorities, you know, like for instance, no, I mean, like, I mean, I don't know. I mean, this is not, you know, like a solid plan for promoting an event. You need to do this ahead like 3 years, 2 years, and then you have like a countdown, like any major topic, you know, like stage by stage, everything you are going to do until, you know, like the great hour comes for the opening. So, for example, I mean, like The museum is nearly complete now. You have only
Yes.
like about 7-8 months for the opening, and then you didn't promote, you know, like. I mean, it's not going to do like overnight, you know, and says, well, we are opening it. But you have to invite travel writers, you have to do documentaries, you have to invite media, you have to invite tubers and influencers and tubers. So when it comes, and then you have to make a schedule for like over maybe a month for the inauguration, you know, every week you invite, you know, like a group of celebrities, you know, like media, TV, professional, you know, like archaeologists, celebrities, as is done like worldwide, you know, like when you open an opera or something in San Francisco or in you know, like in Austria or Switzerland. So, I mean, the ministry, they do good things, but still, you know, like things are lacking, which is very basic and strategic. They spend like about $100 million to promote and make, you know, like these clips we enjoy and beautiful. But, you know, like, as you already mentioned, you know, we have Champollion, we have King Tut, and when you have the Grand Egyptian Museum, these are you know, like 3 events that's going to, I mean, like to take place within like about 2 weeks. And, you know, like, I mean, I don't know, I mean, it shouldn't be like so mysterious, you know, I mean, you can't hide your gems, you know, like, this is, you know, like the highlight. Yes. And especially with the international like turmoil, we need to develop it well, because we went through 2 crises, you know, like the corona, and then, you know, like the political crisis, you know, like in Eastern Europe. So really, I mean, like, I hope, you know, like the authorities in tourism will listen to you and start making a strategy. We need merchandise, we need plans, we need to make the lists for the, you know, like the invitees. It's not going to come overnight.
Yes.
It's, you know, like long time for planning. And thank God President Sisi is doing the World Youth Forum every year, and it's so successful. So we need something of that magnitude, really.
Yes. Well, there are even more projects and more inaugurations that will be taking place, should be taking place this year. I mean, we're talking about the conclusion of the new Alamein city, talking about the inauguration of the administrative capital, the Sphinx Airport, the Galila project, the transfiguration of St. Catherine. Now, all of these different projects, I mean, are we talking about having the tourism sector? It's already a very big chunk of the Egyptian economy and a main source of foreign currency. But now are we talking about being a prime destination, touristic destination around the world, especially after all the political turbulences taking place around the world in different continents, with all the security and stability that we are enjoying right now as opposed to a few years ago, having all these sort of prospects, and not just for the foreign tourists, but even for the domestic tourists. Now, do you think the landscape of the entertainment and the tourism industry in Egypt will be witnessing a lot of, not sort of change, but development and progress?
Definitely, yes, because, you know, like, look, you know, like, when we opened, you know, like, Al Fustat Museum, I call it Fustat because need to have, like, you know, like, a solid name, you know, like, not national civilization, because you have to sell a brand, you know, like, you sell Fustat, it's the first capital that been developed in Egypt since 640. And then the whole area has been really beautifully developed, you know, like Magra Layun, you know, like the aqueduct, you know, that used to transfer water from the Nile to the citadel of Salarin. The whole area has been renovated, you know, like the beautiful, there is a resort, there's going to be hotels, restaurant, and we have 1 million visitors within 12 months. So this is so catching, and they are going to add, you know, like next to it, they have, you know, like all the artisans, you know, like of ceramic or pottery, you know, like glassware, and Zakaria Al-Khanani, you know, like has a museum over there. So really, but this area needs really more like shedding more lights and promoting it to be like the counterpart of Khan al-Khalili and Azhar, and to move a little bit. This is very worthy of development and strategic planning, you know. And Dr. Madbouli, Prime Minister, he goes there frequently and check, you know, like on the progress. This is very good and very prestigious. But as well, you know, like we have to keep, you know, like looking after this thing and promoting it. And for example, you know, like when we had the Dubai Expo 2020,
yes,
the Egyptian pavilion ranked like #2 among 190 countries. And there was 1.5 million visitors who came to that pavilion. And I look forward really, inshallah, that Dr. Gama, Minister of Industry and Commerce, she would keep this pavilion, because this is the best pavilion I've ever seen in my life for Egypt, you know, like outside our borders, you know.
Yeah. Dr. Abdel, one final question, because we're running out of time, but like whenever we discuss the tourism sector here on the show for a few years now, we're always talking about when will we get back to the figures and the numbers before the 2011 revolution. Now, how close are we to breaking even that number?
Yeah, this is really coming soon, you know, like, because, you know, like, I mean, Dr. Anani for 6 years has been working diligently, and thank God, you know, like archaeology, antiquities, and tourism, like under one roof. This is excellent, and he's doing an excellent strategy. Look at the museums we opened from Marsa Alam to Alamein and resorts, but still we need some consolidation, you know, like things, you know, like, for example, like the noise. I mean, like the whole thing now in the whole world is coming into index and like indices. So we need, you know, like to have quality control, you know, like about the hotels, the restaurant, transportation, from the viewpoint of tourists. And then we need to cut down like on noise, you know, like we enjoy it as, you know, Egyptian, but visitors would like to know their opinion. And then the pollution and contamination. All these factors, it's 70% of tourism is non-tourism. 30% is hotels and airlines and restaurants and all this, and antiquities and museum. So really the rest, you know, like ministries have to work solidly, consolidated with the Ministry of Tourism, and upgrade, you know, like these facilities, and inshallah we'll get 20 million visitors soon.
Yes, hopefully. So, ladies and gentlemen, definitely a lot of potential, a lot of good prospects for the tourism industry here in Egypt. We're going to be witnessing a lot of developments from now up until the end of 2022, and we're going to be following up and covering them all here on Nile International. But unfortunately, that's all the time we have for this edition of the Daily Debate. Before we go, I'd like to thank my very distinguished guest, Dr. Yahya Abdel, the tourism consultant. Dr. Abdel, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
Thank you very much, sir. It's a pleasure. Ladies and gentlemen, please stay tuned for more coming up on Nile International. I'm Hani Saif. Thank you for joining us.